Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Visit El Paso is our sponsor of today's episode. El Paso is more than just a place on the map. It's where Texas begins. It's a vibrant city with unforgettable sunsets and offers a unique blend of history, culture, and natural beauty. El Paso is the perfect destination for family vacations, couples getaways, outdoor adventures, meetings, conferences, and conventions. Our guest today is Rodney DuBois. Rodney is the race director for the Borderland Mountain Bike Association. Rodney, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Good to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, goes without saying, you are in El Paso, but I would love if you could share a little bit about your back history. How did you get to El Paso, and how did you come to be so passionate about mountain biking?
All right, sure. Yeah, I moved to El Paso back in 1994, believe it or not. Came down here for work. They moved me down here from central Indiana and came down and thought was probably to be here for a year or two. And well, 20 some odd years later, I thought, yeah, 30 years, some odd years later now, I'm still here. So I love it. And yeah, I'm just enjoying the El Paso weather. We're southwestern desert land, so most of our sunshine is year round down here.
I love that. Now, would I be safe in saying that in where you were in Indiana, it's fairly flat?
Yes, it was very flat, lots of cornfields and bean fields.
Okay. And when
Yeah.
you moved to El Paso, and by the way, I can appreciate that story. You came down for a year, and next thing you're here for almost a good portion of your life. What was it like getting to El Paso? And then when you realized, I think I'm going to be staying here, how did you first begin to explore really the beauty of El Paso, in addition to the downtown, the food, just the culture, but just the beauty and the state and the parks and the desert? How did that start to come about for you?
Well, when I first came down here, I was kind of a little bit of an outdoors person, but I was from Central Indiana, right? So a big difference in what you do. But moving to El Paso, you have the mountain that goes right through the middle of the city, basically, and started venturing out through hikes and getting to see a little bit of the mountain little by little. Didn't realize I enjoyed that as much as I did. Um, so started with hiking, and then a few years later, I started taking an old mountain bike out a couple times, and then a friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to ride some of these trails?" And little by little, now I've probably ridden every trail in the city.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah.
It, for somebody who is young, teens, 20 years old, 30-year-old, I would imagine they can get out and get up to speed fairly quickly on some of the trails that are available in the El Paso area. But if you are part of the members of the Outdoor Writers Association, uh, is we're a little bit older. Maybe, I mean, we like to fish, hunt, hike. How do you help folks perhaps maybe have not had that much experience on the mountain bike get acclimated and comfortable getting out there outdoors and enjoying the sport?
I mean, it really depends on each individual, right? I mean, some people have ridden on the street before, so they know how to maneuver on a bike. They just have to figure out how to maneuver on rocks, right? Because we are in the Southwest desert, so it is a rocky terrain. Most of our trails are do have a lot of rock on them. Not a lot of what I'd call dirt that you would see out of like a central Indiana area, right? So you have to get out, and obviously you need to have a helmet, right? Get out there and just we've got trails that are flat. We've got what we call beginner trails, which is a great place for anybody to start out. And even some of them are down by the river. So they're actually not on the mountain. They're down by the river. They're flat. They're almost just a gravel road type environment, right? So they can start learning there. From there, they can move into a couple of our different parks that we have in the city. And there's some other beginner trails there. The thing is to just get out there and try it. And there's a lot of people, if you post on, there's a lot of Facebook groups, even our group, anybody's group. If you post in El Paso that, hey, I'm new to the area, or I'm going to be in the area and I want to go for a ride, I'd love for somebody to show me around. 10, 20, 30 people respond and say, what kind of riding do you want to do? And let's go. What days are you available? What hours? And there's always somebody that will take a new person out if they're new to mountain biking or even new to the city.
Now, I do want to get into the Borderland Mountain Bike Association, but I have one question, and you kind of touched on it. You got to have a helmet. Is there any other must-haves you need before you get out on one of the trails? You know, whether it's a grim trail or maybe you're a little, a little rockier terrain, hillier terrain. What are your must-haves besides that helmet?
So even if you're just going out down by the river, a helmet, obviously. I mean, that's just, yeah, it's just safety requirement there, right? But I always recommend always take water. We're in the desert. The heat can go from the morning's temperatures of 60 degrees. You can be 105, 110 degrees in the afternoon. If you're not careful, you can overheat. So obviously water, something to hydrate yourself with. And a cell phone. You always need to have a cell phone with you because you never know what's going to happen, right? I mean, it may be something you have a mechanical issue and you have to call a, a spouse, a relative, or a friend to come and pick you up because you don't want to hike 5 miles back. You just want to get to a road and have somebody pick you up. Or you could have a bigger issue and you need some medical attention. Um, but I would also encourage people to always take a spare tube. Um, Running tubeless tires with a sealant here in the El Paso area is the right way to go because we have a lot of thorns, right? So we have a lot of cactus, a lot of thorns, what we call little goat heads, and they'll stick in your tire and you'll get an air leak. If you have a sealant, usually it'll seal it up. But if you don't, a spare tube is always good to have because, again, you don't want to have to walk off the mountain, right? That's not a lot of fun having a great day and having a flat tire and have to walk off. And then if you're gonna venture out much further, more than a couple miles off of a road, you're probably gonna wanna take some sort of little toolkit, right? And know some basic, mountain bike, maintenance. So if you do have an issue, you can hopefully get it fixed and get your bike working enough that you can get back down to, your vehicle or back to your house, depending upon where you're headed.
Okay. How about, in addition to the water, say snacks? I mean, if you're out in the desert, you're out for a couple hours, do you need to worry about nutrition being out there? Or how do you prepare even nutrition wise to go out for that 1 or 2 hour ride?
I mean, that all depends on the person and what kind of fitness they have, right? A new person headed out, they're probably going to want to carry some sort of snacks, maybe some beef jerky or a granola bar, or maybe some even some peanut M and M's, right? Just something to give you a little energy, just to get back. Now, your hardcore riders, they're gonna be carrying gel packs, they're gonna be carrying some whatever their nutrition is, but for a newbie, headed out, just a granola bar. Just take a little snack with you, a couple granola bars or something like that, just in case you get hungry. You'd be surprised how many calories you can burn off in a couple hours out here riding in the mountain bike.
I like that. I don't know how much you can see me on our video, but I could probably use to burn off a few calories and some inches. So I think I'm going to enjoy El Paso when I get down there for the OWA conference. So
Nice.
let's talk about the Borderland Mountain Bike Association. How long has it been around? How long have you been a part of it?
Wow. So the Borderland Mountain Bike Association, we're a not-for-profit organization, and our mission is to represent the El Paso mountain bike community and in all of its advocacy efforts to promote responsible trail use, and then develop and maintain our trails. But put that in what we really do is we try to work with the land managers, right? Because we have Franklin Mountain State Park, which is where probably 70% of our trails exist. So we
Mhm.
work very close with them. We help them with some trail maintenance. We try to help them understand if people are making unauthorized trails so we can alert them because I believe it is the largest state park inside Texas.
Mhm.
Inside city limits for sure. And it's really mountainous. And so they don't have enough resources to get out there and look at all of their trails. So we like to feed them, hey, there's some graffiti over here, or there's some unauthorized trails being made over here. So let's get in there and help them out. So we try to help them with that. But we also work with them and let them understand what the mountain bike community is looking for, right? As far as trail use. And we do the same thing with the other land managers, right? Of course, we have the El Paso City. Frontera manages one of the Frontera Land Alliances. They manage what they call the Lost Dog area, which is not too far from where I live, and there's quite a few trails in there. So we work with them very closely. Same thing, just to make sure that our trails are safe to use and give a little feedback of what we see out there because a lot of times mountain bikers can get out a lot further than somebody that's hiking. Just because we typically go a little bit further in miles than a typical hiker would.
Okay, very good. Now, I love the fact that you just mentioned Franklin Mountain State Park and the Frontera Land Alliance. They were actually the first and second interviews for this podcast series, so I love the connection right away. With the individuals who are within your association, right now, about how large is your membership?
We have about, I think it's about 70 individuals in our membership right now. We're
Okay,
actually really trying to push that number up because we want to have a better voice at the table, right? With all the land managers. And obviously, the more membership we have, the better voice we can have, right? And so we're actually part of IMBA, which is the International Mountain Bike Association. So we're basically, I'll call it a chapter of them. And so our membership actually goes through them, which gives our members some other benefits, right? Just not local benefits, but they get some other benefits going through the international or IMBA. Um, and it's always great to have new members come in, right? We're actually doing a couple of events, actually one this evening and one tomorrow, to try to push up our membership even more.
okay. I'm curious, what kind of events are these?
So tonight's the 26th of July, and we actually have what we call the Regulator Derby. So it's a short track bike race. We're actually using the one of the local BMX tracks, and it's basically about a 1.3 mile loop. And so it uses the track, and then it goes out and goes through a little park and comes back in through the parking lot. And we have three groups. It's basically a timed event. So you do as many laps as you can in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or 45 minutes, depending on which group you're in.
Mhm.
And we're charging $20 for the entrance fee, but the whole $20 goes right to the BMX, which if mountain biking and BMX kind of leads into mountain biking. So all of the young kids that are out there, we're just trying to raise some money for their organization, but also get a little people excited about the Borderland Mountain Bike Association.
Okay.
So,
And you mentioned the second event. What's that?
yeah, tomorrow, Saturday, we have our annual membership meeting. So
Okay.
it's just a meeting. We're actually holding it over at the Franklin State Park. It's just information media for our members that might not get to come and see us all the time or want to come and sit down with us instead of come out and go for a bike ride or something like that, right? So sit down,
Okay.
understand what they want, and tell them what we've been able to do for the last year and what our plans are for the next year, basically.
Excellent. And I would be remiss if I wasn't going to ask these next two questions. What's the membership for the Borderland Mountain Bike Association?
The cost there the way IMBA has it, they actually have different I'll call it tiers. I'm not sure what the official
Okay.
word is that they use, but I think the basic one starts at about $40 a year.
That's reasonable.
Um, yeah, it's very reasonable. And I think if you pay the $50 a year, I think that's the one that you get some socks and an electronic subscription to a mountain bike magazine, and you get some other benefits out of it. And then obviously you can keep upping that, and the money goes to different categories depending on where you want it to allocate to.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And my second question was, what kind of merch do you have?
Well, so our organization, the BMBA or the Borderland Mountain Bike Association, we don't really have a store per se.
Okay.
So we do have some water bottles that we'll sell or give away at events. We have some shirts that every once in a while we'll give away at events or sell during one of our fundraisers. but we don't really have we're kind of a small group, so we don't
Okay.
really have the abilities to manage a
Okay.
merchandise store. So,
Okay. Just I have to ask these questions. It's part of
yep,
the role.
none, no problem.
So, Rodney, my question now is when I introduced you as the race director. So, I would love to hear more about that activity. You've mentioned the El Paso Puzzler, but what does it mean to be the race director for the Borderland Mountain Bike Association?
Yeah, so since our organization is a not-for-profit, Howard, what I'm doing as a race director, we've completed 17 years now of the El Paso Puzzler, which is our main fundraiser for the year for the organization. We're putting on the next one in January. It always falls on Martin Luther King weekend. But basically, as a race director for the organization, what I've done for the last 3 years is basically organize everything about the race, pull the permits, make sure we have insurance, get registration site up and running, work with our social media team to get things out on social media, our graphic artist guys to get the posters done up. And then, between myself and other people on the organization, we go out and we look for, sponsorships, right? Since we're not for profit, we're chasing the bike shops. I mean, those are just easy ones, but we're also chasing other, um, local sponsors and even, national and international sponsors that might be able to, donate to our cause and help fund the race because obviously putting on a race take some money because you do have quite a bit of costs involved when you have to pull um, Texas state park permits and you have to get insurance and you have to make sure you have porta potties and trash and sound systems and number plates and a race official that controls who's in first place and who's in fifth place, right?
Right.
So it's just a matter of organizing all that, and it's actually it's a lot of fun, but I'll be honest, it's also a lot of work um, because you have to organize it. And since we are not for profit, none of us are getting paid for it, right? So we're just trying to do the best we can and pull in some money and do that fundraising. And of course, once we get those funds after the race, which is always a lot of fun, our race is a blast. It's actually we have what we call a mini epic, which is a 15-mile course, which is kind of like the beginner intermediate course. I'd say more intermediate. It's not really a beginner. And then we have the 35 and 50-mile loops, which are um, the advanced loops, right? And you'll have people who will finish the 50-mile in about 5 hours, and then you have people that will take up to 8 to 9 hours to finish that course. It's an amazing ride. You go all the way around our mountain, up and over it twice, and you get to see places where most people never go
Oh,
in our
wow.
mountain, just because it's so remote out there. Um, and then, of course, we also, as a race director, we organize making sure we have the aid stations in place and water and snacks for everybody. And then we make sure that the courses are well marked. And then at the end of the day, we have to make sure we put it back better than we started. So we have to go and make sure all of our trail markings are down, our signs are down, and everything is cleaned up. And we sweep the course to make sure that we didn't have a racer might not have dropped the gel pack, for instance, because sometimes it does happen. Although
Mhm.
most of them are pretty careful, sometimes they put it in their pocket and it might miss, right? So they drop it. So we'll go back and try to make sure all that's cleaned up. And then we use those funds that we've made to do things for the Borderland Mountain Bike Association that give back to the community, right? Um, and we've used those funds, if you don't mind me mentioning, we've used them to put in some bike stations at a couple of different locations,
Okay.
which are tool stations with pumps on them. We've done some improvements at what we call the Roundhouse, which is kind of where our venue is. Um, we've done some improvements around there. We've done a lot of, we bought some signages for the park for them to put in. We actually installed, that's probably been about 10 years ago now. We actually installed one of the very first trailheads in El Paso. Um, we obtained a lease from the city and we installed the parking lot and installed the solar table and everything to go with it, the workstation. Um, so we were one of the organizations that organized one of the very first official trailheads that wasn't just a dirt parking lot with a sign on it.
Oh, wow.
So Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm curious then, with as you're describing the association and again its proximity really inside the city of El Paso, my
Mhm.
sense is you get a lot of support, and I don't mean financial support, but just a lot of interest and awareness and outdoor people who are really outdoor enthusiasts from the city of El Paso.
Oh, yeah, we get a lot of people, reaching out to us. Although our membership might be a little bit low, we do get a lot of people that reach out to us and talk to us about issues they've seen also, because they know we have a voice at the table with most of the, land managers here in town. And so we try to make sure we work well with those land managers because we wanna make sure that not just mountain bikers, although we're a mountain bike association, we work well with the running community, the hiking community, we work well with all of them. And we try to make sure everybody understands we're all the same users. No matter how we're using that trail, we've all gotta respect that trail, right? And the only way we're gonna continue to allow our land managers to allow us to continue to use those trails is by promoting good trail use, right?
Yeah, very much, very much. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, and again, I don't mean to put you on the spot. And you were introduced to me by Visit El Paso. They are the host
Mhm.
city for my fellow Outdoor Writers Association OWAA members. There's probably going to be about 250 members coming to El Paso, and just out of curiosity, just maybe nothing set in stone just yet or how the association is going to perhaps introduce the bike trails to our members, because I know we're trying to organize a bike ride, but can you give me a sense of what one of those excursions might look like, whether it's an hour, if it's 2 hour, what might you do to entertain a handful of our members that would want to go out and explore El Paso on bike?
So what I was thinking about, if we can pull this off, is to probably have 2 groups. One would be, one day would be like, I'll call it a beginner's ride, right? For the riders that really haven't, that really aren't out and doing mountain biking. We would probably stick to the beginner trails, probably be, I don't know, maybe a 5 or 6 mile loop, out and back from one of the local parks, trailheads. And, just kind of I'll say almost like a gravel ride or a flatter ride, maybe some Jeep trails and then a little bit of single track. Would try to get um, the group out to a place that we call the Roundhouse, which is pretty interesting. It's got some interesting backstory that would be great for the riders to understand and has some nice pictures of the mountain and the old roundhouse that's there. It's an old ranch house is what it is.
Okay, okay,
Um, and then the second group, if we could organize a second group that might be a little bit more of, I'll call the intermediate to the advanced group, people that typically go out and mountain bike ride, we could get them out on another ride, probably a couple hours, and maybe hit up to about 10 miles or 12 miles if they're up for it. It all depends on how we can organize these groups, right? But either way, we can get them in to see some of our trails that they wouldn't be able to see during. I believe there's gonna be a hiking excursion also. So I would try to make sure that we hit different trails, so the, participants can see different areas of our mountain, because there's a lot of hidden gems out there, that people just don't imagine's out in our mountain, and especially when you think of it's inside El Paso city limits. But
yeah,
when you
yeah.
get out there, you can find old ruins, you can find, old, windmills and, well, this little ranch house. A lot of people know about the ranch house now because there's actually a trailhead not too far from it, but, if you go out further, you can just find, a lot of old ruins, even some old cars that are out there if you know where to look for them. But most people don't understand where to look for these, and then, of course, you've got the whole environment, right? You've got the desert, you've got all of the plant life and wildlife to go with it, so.
Okay. Okay. You just mentioned the magic word, wildlife. As you are on the trails biking, whether it's yourself with your friends or maybe it's a larger organized trail ride, what types of wildlife are you likely to see out there?
So I've been riding for a little over 20 years. I'll call it as an avid mountain bike rider, right? So I'd say over 20 years now. And your typical ride, you're going to see rabbits, anything from a small cottontail to a large jackrabbit. You can see, I've seen out there, obviously rattlesnakes. You got to be careful with the rattlesnakes. We are in the desert. You can find some rattlesnakes. You'll see some Texas whip snakes or bull snakes also. The and if you're lucky enough, and I've seen them a couple times, you'll find a couple of bobcats. You can see deer. I've seen deer on quite a few rides up in the mountain, and you will also haven't seen one. I've only seen one the entire time I've ever been here. I've seen videos of a few mountain lion, so you can find a mountain lion out in our mountain. Um, and then, of course, you got all kinds of birds, right? And
Right.
scorpions and little mice to go with it, but,
Mhm.
it's always fun, and then, of course, you'll see the occasional coyote, and believe it or not, the coyote sightings that I've have are usually closer to the, housing areas than you would think they are. So,
Okay.
yeah, you'll see the coyotes, and it's always neat when you're riding on an evening ride and you hear them, and you're looking and you think they're over in this area, and you're like, "That's between me and the house, and there's a pack of coyotes over there somewhere."
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So, it's always interesting. I love seeing the wildlife. Usually, I'm the kind of person that when I do see wildlife, I'll stop and try to snap a picture, a little video if I can, just because it's exciting to see them.
Very good. Well, I am very
Yeah.
excited, and I've got to go back and look at which excursions I've signed up for. I staying a day after the conference uh, to enjoy a couple of the tours, and so I know our members that are avid uh, mountain bikers or bikers per se will enjoy whatever gets planned by you on behalf of the Visit El Paso and what they're planning for us. So I appreciate that. I am curious, as you kind of look back, you made this trek from Indiana all those years ago and decided to put up roots in El Paso. What's been your aha moment as you have gotten involved in the mountain biking community in El Paso for the association?
In the mountain bike community, what I love is just seeing new riders out there, right? I'm the kind of person that if I see somebody reach out in Facebook or any place in one of the many groups that are for mountain biking here in El Paso or hiking, and they'll say, "Hey, I'm new to town. I'd love to go for a ride. Can anybody show me around?" I'm always one saying, "Hey, what kind of type of riding do you like? And let's go. When can you go?" I've taken quite a few people out and they love it, right? And I'll take anybody from a beginner to somebody that's more advanced out. There are some trails out there that I won't ride. I'm not that advanced, but I
Mhm.
will ride most of the trails out there. And I just love watching somebody get hooked on it. I've got a couple people right now that I took them out for a couple of rides, and they went out and bought their first mountain bike.
Mm,
So it's kind of neat to watch them and then watch them develop their skills too.
okay. You just raised another point that leads me to another question. I recall when I had a mountain bike and then I went to a cross bike. If I was going to make an investment because I think I'm going to enjoy mountain biking, I've gone out with you a couple times. Am I gonna look for a used bike, on Facebook Marketplace or go to find a used bike at one of the stores? What would I expect to pay for that decent bike? Just because I don't wanna make that big of that investment right off the bat.
It's kinda tough to decide where somebody wants to spend their money, but, what I've been kind of telling a few people that's been asking me is, if you're gonna invest in this and you enjoy it, it's like any hobby that you're gonna get into. You're gonna want a little bit better and better and better. So,
Mhm.
instead of starting out with the 3 or $400 bike, maybe just save your money of another month or 2 or 3, whatever it takes, and try to get yourself $1,000 or $800 that you can invest on a good used bike to start with, or even go for a new bike if you want to.
Okay.
But I'm sure you cycle, so bike prices can go anywhere from your big box stores for $200-300 to your high specialty full carbon bikes, 10 grand plus. Um, but I've always told people also just go try out a bike, right? Most bike shops will let you ride around the parking lot. Many of the biking shops, they might even rent you a bike. So you can rent a couple of different ones and try them out and see what you like, right? Because you've got your hardtails, you've got your full suspensions. So you've got different types of bikes. So it's, or just ask your buddy, hey, can I just take your bike for a quick spin and let me ride down this trail and see what it feels like? Because it's always better to have the bike you enjoy.
Right.
I took my daughter out a couple of months ago, and I let her borrow my bike, and I used an old bike that I had in the garage because I knew she was going to enjoy the ride better riding a better quality bike.
Mhm.
Than riding a really beat up bike. So I would always tell people, hey, you could do the Facebook marketplace. Make sure you know what you're looking at. Maybe take somebody with you if you're going to go look at it so they can see if it's mechanically sound. And believe it or not, there's actually a blue book website for bicycles. So you can
Oh,
also get
wow.
an idea of what you should be paying for a used bike too if you're going to
Okay.
buy a used bike. So,
Very good. Very good.
yeah,
Um, are electronic or what do they call them? E-bikes allowed out on the
e-bikes.
trails?
So e-bikes, I would I would tell everybody to go and look at because about 70% of all of our trails are in the state park.
Yeah.
I would caution them and I would tell them that they should go look at the website for the Texas state parks.
Okay.
Um, it does currently state in there that they're not supposed to be on our trails.
Okay. Okay.
And, there's different types of e-bikes too. You have the pedal assist, and then you have ones with throttles. My
Right.
personal opinion personally, and this is just me speaking, I don't see a big issue with the pedal assist because you have to be pedaling, and it just gives you a little extra power, and it gets people out there that might not be able to be out there if they didn't have that pedal assist.
Right.
Something with a throttle for me, that's more of a motorcycle, and that's more of, okay,
Sure.
that's an off-road vehicle, and, that's a whole different story.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, I would say that they need to check with the land manager because we do have trails throughout the city, and each one of those land managers, whether it's a city park, the state park, or owned by the water utilities, or managed by, Frontera Land Alliance, they should probably check with each one of them to understand what's authorized on each one of the trails.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
No, I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah.
Rodney, any final insight to go for our listeners? A book, a quote, just a philosophy that you would like to share with the folks who are going to be listening to this episode and perhaps making that decision? Hey, I got to get to El Paso to get on a bike. What would be your insight to go?
My personal opinion is El Paso is mountain biking or hiking or running, whatever you wanna do on the trails. We're 365 days of the year. We don't have a winter season. I mean, we have winter, we have summer, but it's rideable year round. I mean, you can have a little bit of snow on the ground out here and people are out on the trails because it's something different, and we don't have mud, so it's very difficult for you to damage a trail even if it's wet because it absorbs so quickly into the rocks. So, you know, if you're coming to El Paso, you can bring your bike any time of the year. You can bring your hiking shoes any time of the year and you can get out there. You just have to be cautious of the weather, right? I mean, we do have monsoon season. We do have the extreme heat. So you just have to adjust based on the time of day, based on the heat. But just get out there and enjoy it. Even if it's just a small walk, a half a mile out, you'd be surprised what you can see in a half a mile or to a mile out into our mountain that you can't see from the street. So,
I love it. Great. If
yeah.
our listeners would like to learn more about you and the Borderland Mountain Bike Association, where are the best places to go?
So to check out the Borderland Mountain Bike Association, we have our webpage, which is the bmbalpaso.org. You can also follow us on Instagram, which is BMBA El Paso. And then we also have a Facebook account that you can search on and grab that. And we're pretty active on social media. And yeah, you can always sign up for our newsletter. We publish a newsletter every couple of months to let people know what we're doing. And then, of course, if they're interested in racing, go check out the El Paso Puzzler mountain bike race. It's in January, which is the off season for a lot of the states because it's obviously winter and there's snow on the ground in their mountains. So it's a great time to come south, enjoy some warmer weather, and check out a great race.
Fantastic. Well, we will definitely provide the backlinks to the website and to your social sites, and really in our show notes, make sure we're inviting people to come visit El Paso and enjoy all that it has to offer, including the wonderful biking trails that you and your peers are helping to manage out in the community. I love it. Thank you again, Rodney, for spending time with us today. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Howard. I appreciate it.
All right, listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a very quick close, and you and I can have a final chat.
All right. Good.
All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Rodney DuBois. He is the race director for the Borderland Mountain Bike Association, and really appreciate, and I tell you, painting a wonderful picture of what biking and exploring El Paso can be like, and just getting out on those bikes and just matching your physical ability, or perhaps stretching just a little bit. But it sounds like whatever you do, once you're on that bike, you're going to see some wonderful sights, sounds, maybe even see a little bit of wildlife. You challenge yourself a little bit, but it sounds like you're going to have a lot of friends around you, because it sounds like one of the biking meccas here in the United States. And definitely want you to go out to their website at bmbalpaso.org. We're going to provide the link in our show notes, as well as to their social sites. Now, as for the Outdoor Adventure Series, you can find us on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. You can find us on our LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube channels just by searching for Outdoor Adventure Series. And of course, we are on all of the major podcast directories. So just search for Outdoor Adventure Series on whatever podcast directory you prefer. And again, we want to thank Visit El Paso for sponsoring this episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series. They are the host city for the Outdoor Writers Association of America's annual conference, which is coming up in September. And really, we want to again thank them for their support and introducing us to folks like Rodney. And that makes these series so very interesting, because we get to meet a lot of folks and generate a lot of interest in coming as members to El Paso. And hopefully, our other listeners, after listening to this episode, you're going to want to get in the car or get on a plane and go visit El Paso. To begin planning your El Paso getaway or outing, visit the Visit El Paso website at visitelpaso.com. Until next time, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we look forward to having you join us on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.